Hi guys!
Welcome back
To Heavenly Chats. I'm your host, Emma.
and I'm Chloe, and I'm so excited.
We're kind of like nervous and like sweating all at the same time.
We're like loosening up the gears, you know, like we're getting into it, we're breaking into it.
We're getting the rust off, and that's okay. So we're
The
here.
intro will get better progressively. That was,
And the outro.
and
yeah.
you guys saw our last outro.
Yeah, we just filmed our intro, and then the outro for it was really bad.
It was quite funny, but that's just what happened. It's the real authentic us for sure.
We've been talking about it since and giggling about it.
It was funny.
So.
It was funny.
Yes.
This episode is going to be all about our testimonies.
Yes.
This is probably my most highly requested episode ever recently. So I'm sure you too. People want to hear the testimony. Like that's like the goal. That's the good stuff about a person, I feel like.
Exactly.
And we've got quite the testimony. I've never actually shared mine. Have you? Well,
not in like a big setting, maybe to like individuals.
Yeah.
But like the brief summary, not the full 30-minute version.
I know. I've never given my whole testimony, and mine goes like back like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to just give all the details, and I'm excited to hear yours because we've never really like talked about our testimonies.
Never fully shared, no.
No. So this will be good for the both of us.
There's lots of moving parts. But before we get into it, we're going to pray, and then we'll just get right into our stories after that. So, dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the amazing things that you are doing in our life. We thank you for all the amazing opportunities that you've given us, Lord. We thank you for our healthy bodies, our healthy minds, and we just pray that we can use them to glorify you and to help people come closer to you in your kingdom, Lord. We pray that every single person on the other side of the screen or listening to this can be moved in it from some way, and we can bring more people to you in everything that we do. And we love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful.
Okay, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can get to it. Okay, you guys. So if many of you probably are good, if you follow along with my story, you follow along with me on any social media, I think these pieces are going to place well into your mind. I feel like they're going to make sense. If you're new here, you're getting the whole story. Okay.
Getting the whole juicy details.
So honestly, I've had God in my life, my entire life for sure. I was raised Catholic. I was baptized as a baby Catholic, went to church pretty regularly up until maybe like middle school. I feel like that's when life gets busy. And honestly, my family, they were really good about like, we'd pray before bed. Like I know we'd pray before dinner. Like there was certain like, not like openly pray, but like, you know, like written prayers that you like verbatim, like repeat. We did those type of prayers. I did that my whole life. I would talk to God and pray to God, but it wasn't like every single day. It was kind of in times of need, but I've always known he's there. And in high school, I actually got there was a spurt in me that was like a desire to grow closer to God. And it was a point in my life where I noticed, and this is important because it kind of reoccurs again later in my life, but I felt like I was growing apart from certain people. This was like early high school, I think freshman year, maybe sophomore. And this is when a lot of people started drinking and partying and doing all this and that. And I didn't really want that for myself, but everyone I was friends with and surrounding myself with was doing that. And it was kind of cool because that was at the same time I like turned to the Lord, and I kind of got involved in my like, it was like our youth night. It was like Wednesday night, and it was for the high schoolers, and we would go to my church, and it was kind of like a young adults night, but it was cool. Catholic. And it was really cool. I was really nervous. I didn't know anyone. Sometimes I'd go alone, which is huge for me because I never do that kind of stuff back then. And I went to this really cool convention. It was for Catholics. It was like NCYC. I had like very transformational like moments, and I met really cool people. And it was my first taste of like that world. Yeah. But I knew nothing. Like they were singing worship. There was probably like cool Christian artists singing at that event. I know now.
I had no idea.
But I had no idea. But that was a big moment for me, and honestly, I drifted after that. I think that was kind of a phase. It wasn't a phase, but it was a phase. And I kind of went back to my friends because there was nothing wrong with them. I didn't really know what conviction was. I was just so new. I was just so...
You were young too.
Yeah, I was young, immature, uneducated, and drifted away from it. Not that I wasn't a believer. I just wasn't as prevalent and important in my life. Yeah. And so that kind of carried on throughout college. I went through my college years, wasn't really too involved in the church. And after college, if you guys know my best friend, Taylor, she was moving back home, and her and I were really, really close, and we would talk all day, every day. And I remember sending her a Snapchat and being like, hey, when you get back, like, I feel like I want to start going to church. Like, it's just, the Lord, I think was, I don't know. Because then I didn't realize it was the Lord speaking to me and putting that on my heart. Yeah. But I just had a random desire. I don't know what sparked it. I still, to this day, when I think about it, I don't know where it came from. But I was like, I want to start going to church. I think I was feeling like a loss of identity, like more time on my hands. Like I was freshly single, pretty single, newly. And I was out of school for the first time in my life, and I was trying to navigate everything. And it's kind of cool to see that the Lord was like, come to me and I'll help you.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that. And there's so many signs, you know, that I look back on and I'm like, wow, God was really working in my life and I had no idea. And it's crazy because when I sent that to her, she responded and she was like, Chloe, like I was thinking the exact same thing. And I'm like, that's really cool.
That's
like,
crazy.
The Lord put that on both of our hearts to do together. And I think something when you're a new Christian, it is scary to show up alone. Like, I don't think I could have done that without Taylor. But I guess her mom is very faithful now that I know that now. But at that time I had no idea. And so Taylor was like, introduced to it. She like knew some worship songs because her mom just always has that playing in the house. Her mom's very smart. She's planting seeds on the kids, but not forcing it down their throats. And I think that's cool because Taylor naturally, you know, like opened up to worship music and knew all this stuff. Anyway, we start going every Sunday. We go with her mom, Kim. There was a church downtown, and it was really, really cool because when I started doing that, I started posting a little bit and growing my faith. Definitely still living as a lukewarm Christian, though. Like, it was all new to me, and I was trying, though. I didn't realize I was being lukewarm. To me, what I was doing was... You never know until
you look back.
Yeah, to me, I was doing everything I could, and I still, like, appreciate that about that season of my life because it is such a growth spurt. You know, it's a growing season. You're always going to be in your journey. This was just the very, very beginning. So that led into me just connecting with other Christians kind of in my town, and I was meeting other friends, and it was really cool to hear their stories. And I was like, wow, the Lord's like placing a lot of these people in my life. He did that again. It's really cool. Like, he'll always continue to do that. This was the first taste I had of it. And so I started going on Sundays. We'd go to SALT, which is like a college ministry. Like that. It's like on Thursdays, and it was just for young adults. And it was really cool because that was the first time I had experienced something like that it was more tailored towards people my age, my own experiences, and that helped a lot. But then that ended once school ended, and so I went through the summer still actively going to church every Sunday, but that was kind of the extent of it. I didn't read my Bible, but I was starting to listen to worship music. Taylor and I went to a worship festival, Christian music festival. Cute. That opened up my opportunity to listening to worship music, and I was like, wow, this is really moving. Like, this is really touching and freeing. I remember being at that concert and like openly like singing out loud. I had never done that. Like, I'm a very closed off, like, quiet person. And I was like, whoa, like, that was so unlike me. But I feel like the Lord can pull that out of you. And it was cool because I'm like, I could see myself transforming in little bits like that. Yeah. And it was nothing crazy. It wasn't like life altering, but I was like, wow, I've never just fully just enjoyed something and felt so connected into the words and the stories and testimonies of the artists. Like, it really drew me in. Anyway, that was that summer, and by the end of it is when I moved here to Arizona, and I was pretty like excited. I was a new Christian. I was like wanting more. And my little brother, Jake, if you guys don't know, he's 21. We moved to Arizona together last August, like almost a little over a year ago. And I was like, he needs the Lord. He needs Jesus. He needs to know God. Like, I had seen it just transform my life so much.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And it's just like when you have the joy from the Lord, you want everyone to have it because it's so life-changing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he needs this. But I know my brother, and I know you can't just force feed it down his throat. He's a believer, but
he's a little stubborn.
A little.
If y'all don't know, I'm dating her brother.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, they're dating.
Yes.
And so she knows him very well, just as well as I do. And his kind of catch was, I'm only going to like a Catholic church. And I was like, okay, I'm not trying to change his religion, his beliefs in any way, but I just knew the difference between me sitting in a Catholic mass and me sitting in like a non-denominational Christian like sermon, Sunday service. Like, that's what changed for me. Like, that's what made such a big impact. And I'm like, Jake, just please try it. Just try it. And you guys, we tried 2 churches. I didn't realize like there's satellite locations here because this is a big city. We don't have that in Iowa. Like, we have one main location. The pastor's always there preaching in person. Yeah. So we started testing out these, I think we went to 2 or 3, and it was like a miss because I didn't even really connect. Like, I don't like the recording. So
well,
I'm like,
especially for your first time. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't it.
If you guys are new to church and you don't have like a connection right away, don't diss it. Yeah. Try somewhere else. Yeah. Give it a shot. Yeah. Give it a couple weekends. Yeah. Or just keep doing it until you find something that you love, because I promise you will eventually. Or something online that you love.
Yeah, you
and
can
follow.
stream them online, and if you find a really good pastor, but it was a miss and a miss. And I was like, oh boy, this is like not good. And so he went out of town, he went back home, and I had actually met a friend. And again, this is somebody the Lord so specifically, so strategically placed into my life. And it was really cool because this was like a moment too, where I was like, okay, the Lord is working in my life. I was again, new here. I had no friends. And this was the first like weekend that I wasn't like busy moving and having things going on, and Jake was with one of his friends, and I was home alone, and I wasn't like lonely and sad, but I was like, okay, this could get lonely and sad if I don't make a friend. Like, how do I do this? And so I like prayed, and I was like, Lord, please like place somebody into my life. Like, I need a friend here because I felt kind of alone. I literally woke up the next day to a DM from a girl who I had messaged before about like meeting up. It was 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and this girl texted me and was like, hey, I know this is really like last minute and it's really early, but would you want to go get your nails done? And I was like, whoa, like the Lord, her name's Julie. She moved. She doesn't live here anymore. I don't think you met her, but she's
Cute.
So cool because we went and got our nails done and we get chatting. I had no idea she's a Christian. I had no idea, nothing. I just knew she was into fitness. And I'm like, okay, that's something we can chat about. We started talking about that, and then it just led into our faith. Like when you like have a conversation, it just comes up. Like there's no denying it. It's such a big piece of our life. It's hard
especially
to not talk
now.
about.
I mean, it's hard to talk to somebody that doesn't get it because it's like you don't want to like overly talk about it and like annoy them, but like it's going to come up in every conversation. Yeah.
And so we both had that moment where we're like, oh, you're Christian? And she's like, yeah. And we were like, oh my gosh. And then we were like, whoa, the Lord like placed us into each other's lives.
That's really cool.
And I was asking her, I'm like, what church do you go to? Because I was striking out, and she was like, oh my gosh, I go to this one in South Scottsdale. She's like, you're either going to love it or hate it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. And Jake was out of town. I'm like, this is perfect. I can go experience it, see what I think, test it out before I bring him. I go. This man preached the house down. I was like, this is the most perfect pastor for my brother. Like, he's very manly. Mark Driscoll, if you guys know him, you can look him up. He's at Trinity Church in Scottsdale. You either love him or you probably don't, but he's very strong-willed, and he's very, he's
straight up about it.
He's straight up, and he's very honest about his beliefs, and I respect that, and I like a person who can speak their truth, and just a lot of the things he preaches about, I knew Jake would align and connect with, and I was like, this is gold. I'm like, the Lord, thank you. And so I'm like, Jake, you're coming. I'm like, I'm showing him his Instagram. I'm like, kind of
hyping it up.
Yeah, hyping it up. And I'm like, we're going. And he's like, okay. And he was like kind of excited. And so we went, and Jake loved it. And I was like, that was the key for Jake. That is a big moment for him. But it was so cool because then that's when the both of our journeys really like, I feel like kick-started. Yeah. And we had a friend here who was originally from Iowa and invited Jake to rally at Impact, so the church we go to now. And he was like, it's a young adults night. It's a really cool, great place to meet people. I was out of town, coincidentally. And not coincidentally, I always say that, but I'm like, nothing's a coincidence. But I was out of town, traveling somewhere. And so Jake went, and Jake went alone with this guy. And Jake texted me, and he was like, wow. Like, wow. He's like, I have never, Darrison, he's like, I've never seen someone preach that way. It is the most like,
it's so crazy that I was there.
Yeah.
And like, I had no idea who you guys were.
Yeah.
But the thing somehow, some way we all find a way to connect.
I'm like, if you would have met him at this point in his life, I don't think you guys would have been together because he was so new. He wasn't the person he is now. Like his habits, behaviors, values, morals, like they were transitioning, but he was still like in that building phase. He doesn't
even like look the same.
No, he's so different. Like he is just like such a good testimony of like what the Lord can do with your life because he is a different human being, and it's so cool, and it inspires me. But he went to Impact, and then Jake took me, and that really, again, kind of ignited another, like, draw of wanting the Lord and just more exposure to it. And it just kind of continually, from there, the Lord just kept placing more people in my life and placing more people in my life. And everyone I was meeting here was Christian, and I'm like, well, like, there's a few other people I met up with for lunch, and I was just trying to make friends. And every single one of them was Christian, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, these people are so amazing. I'm like, all these Christian people are just the sweetest, purest, most wholesome human beings. And I'm like, they're great friends. That's how I met most of my friends here. And then the Lord placed Kyler into Jake's life. That was such a cool story. I've shared that many times, but they met up for work. And
through social media.
So crazy. Yeah. Jake was actually trying to sell him something. And now Jake works for him. It's really funny. But they met, and I started going to church with him, and like, again, the Lord placed Kyler into my life, and Kyler has been a huge impact. Like,
he's very smart.
He's a very good leader. Like,
Yeah.
And he's very good at like calling me higher and
With like
teaching
anybody.
me.
He talked to like
Yeah.
someone on the side of the street. He talked to like a bug on the side of the street and be like, you need to know Jesus.
And
like,
it's,
that's just Kyler in a
yes,
nutshell.
it
He's
is.
so
It
good.
is. And it's so cool just because he's been able to like build my confidence in the Lord and build my confidence in my own relationship with God, because like all these things I was doubting, he's just been so critical in teaching me what I don't know, he's just made such an impact. But for me, I'm like, my testimony is just watching the way God has like so specifically placed people in my life and drawn me closer, because then Kyler introduced me to so many people at the church, and that's like now my new like community.
Yeah.
And then Kyler actually saw you at church and pointed you out to Jake, and then Jake came across you on TikTok and was like, Chloe, this is my wife. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Jake, she's beautiful, like she's like, what's not to love? And I'm like, go for it, I don't know. And it was a whole thing, like me, Jake, and Kyler were like helping Jake come up with like responses to you, because he was so nervous when he was
this
first
is so funny.
messaging you.
This is so funny.
And so nervous, and it was just so funny. But I'm like, it's so cool, because like if Jake hadn't met Kyler, I wouldn't have like went to this church, and then we wouldn't have found you. And it's just also the timing is so insane. And like the timing that Kyler and I met, we were friends at first because Jake and him were friends. And then I started dating Kyler. And then within that like 1 week period of me and Kyler being like, okay, we love all three hanging out, but like we're kind of a thing, but we don't want to kick Jake to the curb. You literally gracefully popped into our life, and then it was perfect. I'm like,
which is so crazy. Like I had no idea who these people were.
Yeah.
Like
And
just like biggest thing was like I didn't want to like be with someone that was like likes me because my sister's like has followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
I had no idea about anything. And I had no idea who any of you guys were. I like had seen Kyler around at church, but like I didn't know his name. I maybe I talked to him in like a group setting, but nothing crazy. And I had no idea that him and Kyler were even friends.
Yeah.
And that even had a sister. Like I didn't even know anything at all. So like the first time I hung out with him, he was like, yeah, like my sister's low-key dating my best friend. And I'm like hearing all about this. Like the first time I ever met this kid, we like went on a hike, and I was just like, what is going on right now? And now we're all best friends. Like what are the odds that like 4 people in their 20s like all get along so well and have such similar interests? Like I don't know, but it's like in such a big city,
it's
like
so gracefully placed by God. Like he so strategically did all of that, and it's so cool because every person in your life is so impactful. And that even reminds me of part of my testimony I forgot to bring up, and this is kind of a big piece of it, is Taylor and I. So we started going to church in October of like 2 years ago now. And so in 22, and come January, we go to this event in LA too, keep in mind. And we're at the Zoo Culture grand opening. If you don't know, that's a big gym. Bradley Martin opens it. Not a Christian environment whatsoever. Okay. And I bring Taylor along because I always get nervous traveling, going to these things on my own. And so we were here in Arizona, actually, when we booked the flights. I was on a trip. And that was a trip that stirred up the idea of me moving here in general. So that's kind of crazy. And then like 2 weeks later, her and I on a whim were like, we're going. Like, I'll just book the ticket, I'll go. Because I was with Roger at the time. And so she comes with me. We go on this trip. It's pouring down rain, okay? In California. It never rains in freaking California. And my friend Nikki Font, who I had known only through social media, never met her in person, she calls me up because we had been chatting online about how I was going to be out there because she is from there. And she's like, okay, great. Like, I might be bringing a few girls. Like, we'd love to connect and meet, you know?
Yeah.
And she calls me this day, and I never had met her. I never spoke to her on the phone, like only through DM. She calls me, and she was like, hey, is there any way we can go to this event with you? Because like I said, I was with Raw Gear, so we got in like through the back. Like, we didn't have the line wrapped around this building of the grand opening at the gym. It was unreal. And she's like, I'm not with Raw Gear. Like, I'd have to stand in this line to get in, and like I don't want to do that. Can you like text the manager, see if we can come with you? And the manager knew Nikki, and it was great. So she was like, hey, I'm with this girl, Kayla. And I was like, she's my gosh, love Kayla. Like, Kayla's one of my best friends. And I was like, okay. So I'm with a whole group of Raw Gear athletes, and I'm like, hey guys, 2 of these girls I've never met, they're gonna come with. They need to get in. And it worked out great. It was so much fun. But the second they walked in, one, I thought they were best friends. I thought Nikki and Kayla were like best friends. They had met that day.
Crazy.
Because they connected, because Kayla was coming out to this event because she just felt called to come, and she knew Nikki was there, and so she connected with Nikki. She got her own Airbnb, was like flew alone from Charleston, South Carolina to LA by herself. Connected with Nikki on the day of. They came, they met, we all clicked instantly, and I was like, wow, I have never just like connected with people so quick and it was so cool. And I had no idea about their like religion or if they were Christian. I knew nothing about it. It wasn't again, this was like the start. This was like 3 months into me just going to church.
Yeah.
And so we're all talking, and me and Taylor, I remember sitting in Nikki's car in her little Tesla, and we were at the event, and Kayla wore like neon bright colors. Like, I think it was like yellow and pink.
Literally.
She stood out, like
Stood out. I'm like, give me all the neon.
And everyone else is wearing like black, gray, neutral colors, like dark in a dark gym. She stands out. And then you meet her and you talk to her, and she just has something about her. I'm like, what the heck? Like, everyone's so drawn to her. She's just the sweetest, bubbliest, has so much joy. And she was like, I really need to go talk to Bradley Martin. She's like, he lost his dad. I lost my dad. It's big part of her testimony. And she's like, I need to talk to him. And I was like, whoa, like that was like the first taste of me being like, she's a Christian, because she brought up testimony. And I was like, okay, we're sitting in the Tesla. We're just driving around, and she had just subtly talked about the Lord and her faith, and just so naturally. It wasn't like she was shoving it down her throat. She wasn't nonstop talking about it, but I was like, that's what she has. I'm like, Taylor, that's what it is. We're kind of looking at each other and like, she knows the Lord. And I'm like, we want what she has. And so it was
the
really
Jesus
cool.
glow is
the
real.
Jesus glow, you guys. And so from then on, we grew much closer to Kayla, and we listened to her testimony, and it's been so cool. I've had her on my podcast sharing her testimony. Like, she's been a big, big rock in my like foundation with the Lord, because she was like my inspiration, because I saw myself and I saw her, and I'm like, there's a big difference between the two of us, and like our hearts are the same, but like she knew God and I didn't. And I was like, okay. And from then on was like when I fully just went into the Lord, and that's when Taylor and I started going to like Salt, and we started getting more involved and meeting more people. But it truly has been just like the specific placement of people and the timing and what they have to offer and how they can serve me and how I can serve them. And I'm like, all of that is by the grace of God. Like, it's so intentional. And I'm like, a lot of people's testimonies are like super bad, like really low valleys, you know, and they're just like stripped of everything. And then it forces them to lean on the Lord. And I mean, I think I've experienced a little bit of like the Lord stripping me from everything when I moved here, because I was so nervous to move here. I didn't know if it was right for me. I didn't know. I'm a homebody. I was terrified. But I prayed about it, and it was the first time I had really, really prayed and like tried to hear from the Lord and depend on Him and have faith in His plan. Because it was a big leap of faith to move out here, and I was signing a year lease. So I'm like, at least 12 months I'm staying here, you know? And I was dragging my brother into it, and I really prayed about it. And it's really cool because there was this like theory I heard on TikTok, literally TikTok, but it was like this girl, she came up with this like, I think hers was like a pink car theory or something. And she was like, she
like the sign,
made a God sign. And she was like, I see it when I need it. And he reminds me that He's there. And I'm like, I need to do that. Like, I need a God sign. Like, I want to see if He's there. This was me so new to it. So mine was a cardinal. It was a bird. And I talked about this on my socials before, but this was like one of those moments where I was like, whoa. I literally distinctly remember going on a run, you guys, and for some reason I felt so called to go run on this trail. That's dangerous to do by yourself. I don't really recommend, but I was like, I just felt so drawn to go do this. I don't know why. I hadn't ran in a minute, because I was just like post my first half marathon. Like, I didn't have to run, but I was like, it's a Saturday morning. It was beautiful. I just wanted to go run. And this was like 2 weeks before I had to sign my lease for here and like decide what I was doing, because my other lease was leaving or like ending. And it was kind of like pressure game time for Jake and I. I'm like, we have to figure out if we're doing this.
Game time decision.
I was stressed, to say the least. And I'm like, I'm going to go on this run. And on this run, I'm like feeling this like overwhelming amount of like peace and gratitude. And I'm like, I have never felt like this. And this is also at the same time as I was transitioning out of like one friend group. And it was really uncomfortable, because I'm like, why am I leaving all these people behind? Like, they're great people. I love them to death. But something just didn't sit right. And I didn't feel... the Lord was like stirring things up in me, and I just had a lot of commotion. And I go on this run, I felt so much peace, and I was like, the Lord, I'm like putting this on You. I have faith in You. I trust in You. I feel peace with these decisions, because that's what a lot of people I was kind of looking to for direction was like, if it gives you peace, it's from the Lord. If it doesn't, it's not. And I was like, Lord, like, I think I feel peaceful, and these are like really crazy, stressful situations, but I feel so much peace about, you know, maybe stepping away from some people and stepping into this new life in Arizona. And I go on this run, and I'm thinking about all these things, like running is therapeutic. And I remember I was coming back. It was like a 5-mile run, and I'm on my last half mile maybe. And I remember when I was running down, there was like a bench on the left side, and I was like, oh, that'd be a good place to prop my phone up to take a picture, because I was wearing Gymshark and I had to hit a deliverable, okay? And I was like running, but when I ran by, the first time there was a man sitting on the bench, and I was like, okay, well, I'm obviously not doing it then. And so I was like, if it's open on the way back, like maybe I'll just do it. And I'm running back, and I see the bench like coming up, and I'm like, oh, like I just want the run to be over. I was tired, I was hot.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? And something in me was just like, Chloe, just stop and take the photo. Like, it's not that hard. It's your job. Like, get a photo. And so I prep up a little lens buddy, and I'm like taking a few pictures, and I go to grab my phone, and I look up, like literally this. And the thing is with the timing, like of me just like naturally looking, you know how fast birds fly, fast. Yeah. I look up, and a cardinal's like right in front of me, like could not have been closer. And I'm like, whoa. And in my head, like a split second as I saw that, I'm like, no, it's just a coincidence. Yeah. Another one flies by as I'm having this thought, and I'm like, okay, that's the Lord like slapping me and being like, nothing's a coincidence. Like, yeah, I'm here and you are doing the right thing. And so yeah, that was just like a story within my testimony, but it's like there's been so many times and moments where I've had to rely on the Lord, and I've seen his work, and I just truly believe in him and his plan for me. Yeah. And I think when you're in your early 20s, there's so many unknowns and there's so many questions, and you have to start relying on him and having faith in him. And I think, I mean, I can't deny it. Like, everyone he's placed in my life has been so influential to me in such a good way and drawn me closer to him. Yeah. And opened doors. Like, there's things I can't even talk about, but like, part of that story ties into another thing I'm getting into here soon, and it could be life-changing. It's a big thing. And like, this podcast wouldn't happen without it, and our relationships with our boyfriends wouldn't have happened without it, and my like enjoyment living in Arizona, I don't think would be the way it is if I hadn't found people in a church. Yeah. So I mean, there's probably more, and I'll probably share more like stories and stuff as we go, but yeah, that's my testimony. I really came from like being so lukewarm to just the Lord placing people into my life. So I guess for me to say to you guys is like, if you have those people in your life, they're there for a reason. They're there for a reason. It
goes back to the original point, is like, the whole part of Christianity is like, he gives you a certain story for a reason. The whole reason you have valleys and mountaintops and good things and bad things happen to you is like not to make you sad or make you depressed or whatever it is that you think is happening to you. It's like for somebody else. Yeah. Like, your testimony isn't just for you, it's for thousands of people out there. And she wouldn't have, like, if she had never met Kayla, like, who would have known? You know what I'm saying? Like, Kayla had to go through her hard things before that to become as joyful as she is now.
Yeah,
and
she literally lost her dad.
Like, like, that literally inspired Chloe, and that's, like, now Chloe's inspiring other people by being on this, and, like, it's just, it's so crazy to see what God does, but that's like literally the whole point of what a testimony is and what it does for people. So the funny thing is that we didn't even know each other's fully. So we're kind of hearing everything now. So mine's kind of all over the place too, and it starts from a while back. So I've played soccer my whole life. I've played since I was 3 years old. I did track a little bit too, and I played softball a little bit when I was younger, but soccer's been my main thing. It's always been the main thing. It's always been a goal of mine to go play in college and then wherever from there. And that's pretty much been something I've wanted to do since I was like 5 years old, 8 years old. Like, that was always the goal. And that's pretty much like all my parents and I really talked about, was like, where are you going to go to school? Like, traveling on bus to plane to state to state, like, since I was 8. So anybody that's been in sports kind of understands the dedication to it. So I grew up Christian. My mom has instilled that kind of in me since I was little, but like, we'd pray before like big games, and she'd always like make cute little like keychains and stuff like that to like put on my soccer bag, and like cute scriptures. Always the scripture my mom and I always said was Jeremiah 29:11, and that's been like instilled in my mind since I was really young. But I always knew of God. I always knew he was a thing. We went to church. I like feel like I first remember going like when I was like 11 or 12, like really remembering sitting in service. Was I ever really retaining any of the information? Probably not. But
did you go to like a non-denominational or?
Yeah, but it was a little bit more traditional than like stuff out here. I can't remember the name of it, but it was when we were in Colorado. So it was before I even moved here. So, I don't even know why we moved here either. It was super random, but it's all part of the plan. So, a whole bunch of stuff I think went on with my parents that I don't know about. I was pretty young. I was like 11. So I don't really know what happened. But one day my brother and I wake up, we go downstairs, and my parents were like, do you guys want to move to Arizona? And we were like, sure, why not? Like, my cousin lives out here, so my mom's side of the family lives here. We'd visit here all the time. It was like my brother and I's favorite vacation. We loved coming out here.
It's crazy because that's how Jake and I were too.
Yeah,
Like, we had
like,
family who would winter here, and it was always our favorite.
Yeah, like the smells here. Like, we were always so excited to go see our cousin Cooper, and like we just looked forward to, like, we'd get at the airport and we'd be like giddy the whole time. We're like, oh my gosh, we're going to Arizona. And so we were super excited. We literally put our house on the market like that week.
Wow.
And it literally sold within like 4 hours. We had like four overpriced offers in like 4 hours. And so that was kind of like the turning point of like, okay, if we get any offers on our house, like, we'll fully move. Like, and obviously I was 11 years old. Like, I had no say in anything, but, we literally started packing. We moved out here. It was kind of like a whole like month process of like selling our house there, obviously moving complete states.
Wow.
We had 2 dogs and a cat. Like, it was a whole thing. So finding a house out here, Scottsdale is just big. Arizona is just big in general. So is Colorado, but we were in like a small little community. So like it didn't feel like we lived in a super big state. So we moved out here, still playing soccer my whole life. And with that, I literally went to school 5 days a week, left to go out of town, like left to go out of state, left to go out of town every Friday. So pretty much every Friday. We'd go to California, Vegas, Utah, Texas, Florida, South Carolina, you name it. We've been just about anywhere, Oregon. So I was never home. I would literally go to school late on Mondays because I was so tired coming home from practice. So I always kind of wanted to go to church, but I never had time.
Yeah.
I always had a Bible, never really read it. Like, it was just like always in the back of my mind, but I never was really ever
I think that's not for a lot of people. Like, they know it's there, but you probably didn't have that moment where you like had to run to him, you know?
Yeah. And so then high school rolls around. I get recruited by the University of Arizona to play soccer, like first week of freshman year. And I went down, toured the school, did the whole thing, verbally committed to that school. And so that's where I knew I was going to go when I graduated senior year. So 15, I made that decision, which is crazy now looking back. Like, I was so young, and I like tied myself down to a place that I didn't even know like was going to be a possibility. But basically, if you ever have like the pressure of sports and like how much you have to live up to, like it was my entire life. I was like, I can't let these coaches down. I can't let my grades down. I can't let this down. I can't let that down. And high school is just really tough for me. Girls out here are like ruthless. I hate to say it, but like, they're ruthless.
It's different.
And it was just like never something that I had the same friend group every year, or I like had a whole bunch of people to lean on. Like, I always kind of had like one best friend type of vibe, or my soccer team. Like, my soccer team was my family. And then sophomore year hit and COVID hit. So my parents were in the middle of getting a divorce, and I don't really want to like get too much into that, but it was a mess. It was not good. And my dad was always working. My mom was kind of not really in my life. And it's really hard to like not touch on that without like giving too many details, but she wasn't really in my life. My dad was always working. I was like alone in the middle of a global pandemic, like stuck at home between moving out of our house that my family moved in when we moved here and living in an apartment at my dad's, sharing like a room, bathroom, and closet with my brother, my 16-year-old brother. Like, we shared a bunk bed. Like, things were rough. And I know people out there don't have houses or don't have food or running water, but like, that was a really low time in my life. And I was just like, what do I do? And that's when it really started to like kickstart my mind, where I was like, okay, like, this is when it's going to change for me, because I had like nothing else to do. But I think you just get so tied into the high school life. Like, I didn't really go out a ton. I mean, when I could and I didn't have soccer, I would attend parties. I would attend going to things like that, but it wasn't anything crazy. I was never really known for that kind of stuff. But it was something I did do. So I definitely was very lost at one point, and I'm glad that I'm not anymore, and just seeing the difference and all that kind of stuff. But I always knew in the back of my mind, I would like read scriptures on Instagram and I would read things on TikTok, and like I would always get Christian TikToks on my feed. And I'm like, why are these always popping up? And I'd always feel called to like listen to them from start to finish. Like they'd be like 3-minute videos before like the 10-minute feature was a thing. And I'd sit there and I'd like listen to the whole thing. Did I really want to? Not really, but I was like, I feel like I need to know this. And it was always when things were really, really bad in my life. And so I was like starting to listen to it. But still not living the way that I should. So that was kind of all like end of sophomore year, all of junior year in high school was COVID. And then senior year, we were allowed to go back to school. But we only had half days. So I was basically done with school at like 11:30, went back home to my dad's and was like, they're alone. And you kind of just get to a point where you're alone all the time and you're just like, what do you do? Like,
I feel like that's, it
like,
reminds me of even mine. And it's like, because one of my friends back home, like, she's the one who pointed this out to me, but she was like, the Lord really will strip you down to nothing for you to like then have to like lean on him and like start new. Yeah,
you have to realize that he's all you got.
Yeah, and I think like me moving out here and not knowing anyone and not knowing anything, I felt so alone, and I felt like so stripped of everything I was used to. And I feel like for you, this whole transition with the divorce and school and COVID and all of that, like stripped you down to nothing. And so it's so cool though that you were able to like, you know, lean on him.
Yeah. And I'm trying to like even think all like the little things that had happened, but I chose to go to school in state was because I didn't want to leave my brother. He's 16. We're like 3.5 years apart. We've always been super close. And I don't know, I just like never felt the need to like leave him or anything like that. And I love Arizona. I was like, even with everything that's happened, I was like, I want to stay. I'm a big homebody as well. Like I could just not see myself going to school far away. So senior year signing day rolls around. So for people that don't know what that is, you basically have like a verbal contract with the school that you've been committed to until you sign that you are actually committed to that school. So I had a scholarship with them since freshman year, since I was 15. I'm 18 now, and you're in the gymnasium. You're like about to sign your life away to this school, and that's where you're going to go, and you have the t-shirt, and everyone takes pictures. It's a super fun day. So I signed in front of my entire school, and after that, I was going to go get lunch with my friends and my boyfriend at the time, and I get a call from U of A, and they call me, and they were like, hey, the coaches called me that recruited me, and they're like, hey, so we're no longer going to be sticking with U of A, and we're all basically transferring to go to the University of Florida, and we'll get you in contact with the new coaches. And that was that. So basically 4 years of knowing these coaches, the ones that recruited me, all that kind of stuff was just like gone. And I'm supposed to be going to school in like 4 months. And I was terrified. So I had no idea what to do. Got in contact with the new coaches, thinking that like they know me, I know them, like my name's got to be written down somewhere, like I'm part of this class that's coming here in 5 months, like what the heck. And I get in contact with them, and they were basically like, we are not going to honor your scholarship since we didn't recruit you. And if anyone has ever put a lot of time into a sport or anything and hears something like that, you're like, oh, like, what do you do with that information? I just signed in front of my entire school. Like, everyone thinks I'm going to this school. I've been committed there for 4 years. Yeah. What do you do? Like, literally, what do you do? So I'm crapping my pants at this point. I'm sitting at Chipotle with my friends, and I'm like bawling my eyes out, can't even eat, like trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And so from that point on, I basically had to reach out to every single school that I could possibly think of. Because with that being said, I was a senior, and it was like December. So I was graduating in May, and for soccer, you have to be there like 2 months early. So I literally had to be at school like June, early July. So coaches won't reach out to you when you are quote unquote committed to a school, because they know that you have a commitment to a place already. So most places have already filled up their class of the players that they already want for the upcoming freshmen. I hope you guys are following. This is kind of confusing.
No, but I think most people will be like, it's making sense.
So talked to a couple schools, talking to UNLV for a little bit in Las Vegas. I don't like to use the word hate, but I hate Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's a dark place.
I went and I toured the school, and I didn't love it, but like it was one of my only options left, and I was like, okay, like whatever. I got a shirt. I took the commitment pictures. I thought I was going to commit there. Last minute, it didn't work out. And my club coach kept reaching out to me and was like, GCU is really interested in you. If you guys don't know what GCU is, it's Grand Canyon University. It's a private Christian school out here in Arizona. And also with soccer, like you don't really play high school soccer, or you don't out here. I don't know if that's like a nationwide thing, but we play club, and I only played senior soccer or high school soccer my senior year. So I legally couldn't play my first 2 years because of the club that I was associated with was underneath a league that wouldn't let you play club and high school.
Interesting.
So by the time that those like legal things were dropped was my junior year, where I didn't go to school. So I wasn't going to like drive down to school to play high school soccer when I wasn't even like sitting in actual class. I was doing it online. You know what I'm saying? So during COVID anyways, I was just like, no. So I played club my junior year, and then senior year, all the seniors were like, okay, we'll go and play her for high school like our last year, because it's our last year here, and like, why not? So I played high school my senior year, and GCU kept reaching out to my coaches and was like, hey, like, we want to come see her play. Like, we've been interested in her a long time, but like, we knew that she was committed to U of A, And so they came to my high school game. So it's not normal for like college coaches to come to like high school games. Like they normally come to like club showcases, like big events. So the head coach came to my high school game. I was so nervous. And I saw him in the stands, like with his purple shirt on. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this was like one of my last chances to like go and play. And I was like, okay, I played so amazing. And I literally got on the bus after, and he texted me, he was like, hey, we like really want you on our team. Like, can we have you for a, whatever it's called, like a walkthrough of the campus and everything, like sometime next week. And I was like in tears on the bus home, because I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And like in the back of my mind, I was like, GCU is a weird school, like I don't want to go there. And like that's what I kept telling my coaches, like I think I could find Tech's back, where I was like, it's not really like my top choice, but like if that's where I have to go to play, then like that's fine.
It's really interesting that like kind of like your last two schools was one in Vegas and then a Christian. Like that's so demonic. Like Vegas is dark and demonic. Like I feel that when I'm there. Like we drove through it on our way home from Oregon just 2 months ago. Yeah. And just going down the strip, I was like, ooh, like it felt it's just dark. Like all of us were like, ugh. Yeah. And so then to know like your other option was a Christian.
Yeah. And UNLV is like right off the strip. Cool. So yeah, really, really crazy. And so I went and toured the school. My dad and I went. It was super fun. Honestly, it went really well. And I basically committed like that week. I announced it, all that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of what I was going to do. When did I commit? Probably like March, maybe a little earlier. And so I graduated high school in May. And I had like 1 month of preseason. So you get your like running training packet like May, trained all of June. And then July 8th is when I moved into GCU. So it was like a quick turnaround. Like I literally committed, graduated high school, packed up all my stuff, and then trained and then moved into school. So I was there. I didn't know any of the girls that I was going to live with. Like all the girls that I was committed with U of A, like we all had group chats and we knew each other and we texted and we all knew we were going to be freshmen together. So I knew nobody. I didn't know how many girls were in the class. I didn't know how many freshmen there were. I didn't know who I was going to be rooming with. I knew nothing, but I was just like, it's all going to be fine. And I kind of just had to get to a point where I was like, okay, like this is what's going to happen, whatever. So I get to school. It's going great. I mean, as great as it like could. It's like a new environment, new people, new, I don't even know, dorm, like all of it's just new. But going about my day to day, D1 soccer is rough. You wake up, you have lift, you have running, you have practice, then you have film, and then you have lift again, and then you go to class, and then you come back and you go to study hall, and then you go back and you go to bed and you eat dinner and you do it all over again 7 days a week. So I, after like 3 months, was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. But with a lot of the classes that I was in, we had to take a Christian class. So everyone kind of warned me that it was really boring and kind of awful. And it was really hard. Like, this class was really hard. We had to like write like really long essays and like all this crazy stuff. But sitting in this class learning about like theology and all of that kind of stuff, it was in like an old kind of like church looking building. And it really kind of planted seeds into my mind of like, oh, like I remember learning about this when I was little, or like little things like that. And it all kind of just started to come back to me. But obviously my whole life, my whole goal was to play in college. And I was like, why am I here? And I like am not enjoying myself. Like I played, like I got playing time. Like I was super blessed and super lucky to like not be a freshman that like didn't get that opportunity. So it's like, I had every reason to love it and every reason to want to be there. But like, I hated it. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what it was. And I just knew that it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing and where I was supposed to be. And I was like, how do I break this to my parents? Like, how do I tell my parents that they've been paying for this my whole life and this was like my entire life goal, and now I don't want to do it. Like, what do you do at that point? So, I called my dad like bawling one night, and I was like, I literally can't do this anymore. And he was pissed, but we have had like lots of conversations after that point where I was like, okay, like you're gonna move home. Like, if this is what you're gonna do, you're gonna finish out the season, finish out the semester, and then you'll move home. And I was like, okay. And I kind of like made a pact with myself, because I was like, I'm not just gonna move home and like do nothing with my life. I'm a person, I'm really hard on myself, and I like always am kind of like freaking myself out that I'm like not doing enough or not becoming the best version of myself. I've always been like that. And so something in the back of my mind was like, okay, Emma, if you quit and you walk away, I hate using the word quit. Like, I always say walk away from the sport, but if you walk away from the sport, like, you are going to get involved in the church. Like, this is what you're going to do. I wanted to go on a mission trip. I wanted to like find community. Like, I don't know what about it sparked that in me, but I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
It was probably like the peace that it was bringing you, though, and the comfort and the things that you were missing that you were probably seeking out in soccer and seeking out in other things, and you weren't getting. And like, I think the Lord was drawing that to you. You know, like I think you were feeling that, and that's probably what drew you to wanting to do that kind of stuff, because that's how you feel when you're involved.
And so I moved back home, and that was kind of rough because my parents are divorced and like the whole thing. It's just like, none of it was really an ideal situation, but I was like, okay, I'm not at school anymore. Like, I can breathe, I can rest, whatever. I needed to find a job, all that kind of stuff. And so the church that my family and I went to on occasion when we could, like back in high school, I just knew that that wasn't my place, and like where I wanted to like put down church roots, I guess is what you could call them. But we live off of Scottsdale Road now, but like I have driven up and down this road probably 1,000 times at this point. And I remember driving past Impact, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to like try that church out. Like, I had never heard anything about it. I just have driven by it multiple times, and I was like, okay, let's try it out. So I literally, one Sunday by myself.
That's crazy.
Literally went by myself, and I had never been to the location before. I'd never been inside of there. And it's packed, like it's crazy. And so they seat me, like we have ushers on the side, and they seat me in the very front row on the left side.
Really?
Yes. And I was sitting there, and the music is so loud, not what I was used to. There's like big screens, big projectors. The music is like blaring, the bass is blaring, and I'm sitting there and I'm like bawling. I'm like, why am I crying? Like, what's wrong with me? And our head pastor comes out and starts preaching a message called reversing the irreversible. And something about our pastor, he had a stroke about 2 years ago. So it happened all when I literally decided to quit. So like that November before was when he had his stroke. And so he's standing out on stage, and this was like his maybe second or third sermon back from like literally almost dying. He got like helicoptered to a level 3 trauma center. Basically, they told him that he would never be able to like remember anything again, speak again,
didn't they
walk
tell his
again.
wife he was essentially going to be like a vegetable? Yeah,
they literally said that he's going to be dead or a vegetable, or he's like never going to remember his kids' names, his wife's name ever again. And I'm sitting here watching him talk about this, like right in front of my face, and he goes, I had a stroke on November 14th of 2022. November 14th is my dad's birthday. And I'm sitting there
Chills?
crying. I have chills going down my body. I had never met this guy. I didn't know a thing about him. Like, it wasn't like I saw him on socials or anything. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I literally have chills talking about it right now. I was like, what the heck is going on? And sat in the front row, like, by myself. And it was insane. I was like, this is something I have never experienced ever in my life. And I think, honestly, a lot of people say that about Impact, but like, I literally was sitting there, I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I was going to go on that mission trip to Nicaragua, I think, but it was like $2,000 and my dad was not going to pay for it. So I was like, maybe not. But that was what I was going to do. And from that weekend on, I literally had gone there every single weekend. And then I just kind of started inviting friends and started inviting my family to go with me when they wanted to or if they could. And from that point on, like, it's been pretty consistent. I really haven't missed much Sundays unless I was out of town since then, or I'll watch them online or whatever. But looking back, it's like, if I never would have not gone to U of A, like if I would have went to U of A, I would be down in Tucson. And
soccer.
Tucson's a big party school. Like, I would be living that life on the soccer team and hating my life down there. Or I could be in Vegas. And so I ended up at GCU. And then if I wouldn't have listened to like my gut and like what he was telling me to do was like to walk away from it, I never would have been so involved. And it's like crazy to think that any of that would have happened if like the whole U of A thing didn't happen. Like, I was so dead set on it. I had been committed there for so long. So the little things in your life that you think are like life-changing and breaking your heart, and you think that you had it all planned out and everything's going to crap, like, it's for a reason, like, trust me. But no, it's crazy to kind of see if one thing worked out, how many other things wouldn't have. And
that's good.
It's just crazy to think. So everyone always says like bad things happen for a reason, stuff like that. And you never really believe it when you're in the thick of it. But when you can look back and see like, oh, if I did just end up going to school there and just went with it because I was so dead set on it, like all these amazing things, all these amazing people, churches, friendships, community, like I wouldn't have any of it. So it really goes to show that it all does have a purpose in the long run, whether it doesn't make sense. And I think you kind of have to go through hard things to get where you want to be. And you have to go through painful experiences to make you change and all that kind of stuff. So,
like they say, the Lord can make all evil good, right? Is that how they say it? Something like that.
What's that scripture?
I know.
I don't know it. I can't think of it.
I'm blanking. But
I can't think of it.
The Lord can turn all
Things
good, essentially, and everything is
purposeful
within his journey and his path. And I mean, even like you talking about like the dates and stuff, it's crazy because November, like mine started like October, November as well of 22, like the same year. So it's like, whoa.
It was all destined to be a thing.
It was.
It's crazy.
And to think like that was 2 years ago and this is us now.
Yeah.
It's, and like you said, it's so hard when you're in that moment and when you're going through the thick of it, when you're feeling alone or you're feeling confused or devastated, to be like, how does God want this to be what I'm going through? But he knows, like, he's chiseling you, you know, and he's like shaping you. And sometimes like you'll miss what he has for you, so you kind of have to experience something else for that door to like open and for your timing, because the timing of everything is so purposeful. And again, it's so clear with like the timing that we met, and I met Kyler and I moved here, and you on your journey with your like walk with God, and it's all of it had to have happened at the specific time that it did. Again, same with Kayla, like me meeting her that day, like all of it so intentional.
God alignment. It's really such a real thing. And like,
it blows my mind every single time too. I'm like, how is he that good? Like that good?
Yeah. And like, it probably doesn't even seem like that big of a deal to us, but like if I hear like someone else talk about their story, or like our pastors talk about their story, it's like everybody has something, like has something that God's done in their life, whether you believe in him or you don't believe in him or anything like that. Like anything can be a testimony, or it can be a statement to his goodness and like his plan in your life, 1000%. So that's kind of a little bit more about us and our testimonies.
Yes.
You have anything else to add?
I don't. I feel like that was a good introduction just to like how we've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other, and like we're just kind of in my bio, I'm like the walking living proof of a loving God. Like,
Yeah.
everything that has happened in our life and everything that we are so blessed with is because of him. And
Yeah.
again, like for me, my old thing was self-made, and now it's like God made, because he truly has created every single thing in my
Yeah.
life for me.
Yeah.
And now this is essentially just our way of sharing it with you guys, so you can have a little taste of it.
Yeah. I could talk about that for hours, so we'll probably have to do another episode on that at some point. But
I think we can wrap it up here.
I think we're probably good for now, but we can't wait to talk to you guys next week.
Yes.
And
We'll see you in the next episode.
Yes.
And we'll
see you in heaven.